Martha Byrne tonight. This is a story that not only is it going to make you angry, but I have to tell you, it's going to make you sad a little bit, for sure. It's going to make you angry and sad, because of what has happened to this man, this lady, his wife, his children, and it can happen to you. The government lying, bringing charges against a decorated NYPD sergeant who was also a detective, who retired, got 78-something awards, and became a private investigator. And just did a very simple, routine job, only then to find himself being charged with the most ridiculous, stupid things in the world. And you're going to find out that so much like our tax system that can be weaponized, we know the legal system is weaponized. You got to hear her story tonight. Her book is just out, In the Interest of Justice. And I've been, watching some of the interviews of her with other people. And you got to hear this story tonight. She's going to be with us. We're also going to be joined by Patrick Wood. The Trilateral Commission has erased its blackmailer-in-chief, Jeffrey Epstein. Do you know what the Trilateral Commission is? Do you know its history? Why was Jeffrey Epstein a member of the Trilateral Commission? Now, was he working for the FBI, the CIA, the intelligence community, multiple intelligence communities around the world? Do these tapes have a lot of famous people on them in the U.S., maybe even the conservative so-called movement, the MAGA movement, the Republican world? Are there people from other countries on this that are putting pressure on President Trump to drop this? Is that why he responded as he did yesterday? Let's play some clips by Mike Benz. I'm going to talk to Patrick Wood about this. Let's see who else we have tonight. Martha, Patrick Wood. Let's talk with David Pine. Let's talk about the, a bill. A bill that's going to be put up by Lindsey Graham that is, let me just read a little bit to you here real quick. Just a little bit here. President Trump has reportedly green-lighted passage of a disastrous Russian secondary sanctions bill in the U.S. Senate, sponsored by Senator Lindsey Graham, which would basically cut off trade with 85% of the world's nations if they continue to trade with Russia. And then that of course would induce a major U.S. recession. Why would you want to do that? And the bill, I guess, imposes like major sanctions on any country that trades with China. It would massively increase the cost of U.S. weapons productions while driving millions of U.S. citizens, depriving them, I should say, of the ability to pay for the life-saving pharmaceutical medications they need. We'll talk with David Pine about that and more. And then Tina with worldviewtalk.com has been in Texas, and she's going to talk about the tragedy in Texas, which we also just have seen a little bit of that also in New Mexico. And so she's going to talk a little bit about what she's seeing, these camps, and some other news she has related to possible threats against critical infrastructure in the U.S. That and a lot tonight. Let's get to it. But first, don't forget, we are brought to you by you. Hey, you know what? I don't mention it hardly at all. I don't know why I should. But I hope you'll consider joining my vault, where I've archived 35 years of my radio shows, TV shows, ebooks, audiobooks, transcripts, and so much. And my whole series on Revelation, which I don't know how many are in that series now. I think I've done 41 classes, 41 hours in our Sunday night church service on the book of Revelation. Look at all those. And more to come. This Sunday night, I'll pick it up, I think, with lesson 42. So lesson 1 all the way up here to, what's it say up here, Logan? Yeah, lesson 41. So I got 42. That comes next this Sunday night. But if you want to get access to all my years of shows, and many of them are series, they're not dated. These are topics that don't get old. 21 Radicals Ruling America from the Grave. That's a huge series. That's 18 one-hour broadcasts on that. If you want to learn about our history as a nation, about Hamas, there's 11 one-hour shows on Hamas. Marxianity, 5 1-hours on Marxianity. It's a book I wrote in 2018, but it's 5 hours on how in the evangelical world they've merged, not me, not you, They've merged Marxianity with so-called Christianity. Just so many programs on here. And this is just a small sample. So if you would like to have access to all of this, we're talking, how many MP3s are we talking, Logan? Like 60,000 MP3s? And what we were saying, how many MP4s? Like 30,000? He doesn't know exact number. Well, we talked about it about 4 months ago. It was a lot. It's it's years. Okay? So I hope you'll join. You can join us for as little as $7.99 a month. So look, folks, we need a lot of you to join. The IRS just stole $50,000 from us because I dared to write a check to pay my taxes, our payroll taxes as an organization. As you know, I wrote a check because their system was down. And because they didn't pay online, which I couldn't because their system was down, they fined us over $49,000. And if you are new to hearing this, yeah, well, you can read all about it. An article, a press release, worldviewtube.com/IRS. You should read it and pass it around and demand, not ask, demand President Trump do something about our communist progressive income tax system. worldviewtube.com/IRS if you want to read that article. But I hope you'll join our vault, worldviewtube.com/vault. And of course, all the great products that we offer at worldviewtube.com/sponsors. As you know, Bella Grace, the water purifiers, the pharmaceuticals you should have on hand, like amoxicillin with Worldview Healthcare. There's just so much there. The Gatatana that I take every day, half a scoop goes on Dolly's food every morning. I do it personally myself. The Numi that I swish with in order to get that glutathione to detox my cells, which some studies show may remove mercury from your brain, helping prevent Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's. So consider all these great products, great ways, I think, to support your health and this broadcast right here, worldviewtube.com/sponsors. All right, guys, take a look at this cover. Brand new book that's out. All of you should get it and read it. She's about to be my guest, Martha Byrne. The book's called In the Interest of Justice, subtitled One Woman's Fight Against a Weaponized Justice Department to Save Her Husband. I heard her story last week, and I said, Logan, we've got to get her on the broadcast. It's a great injustice, and I hope that more people will talk about it and ask President Trump to get involved. Martha Byrne joins me now. Martha, thank you for being with us.
So much for having me. Thank you for that great introduction.
Well,
I'm glad the word's getting out.
Well, I just heard your story last week. I wish I had heard it before that because this has been going on a while, but I finally heard about it last week. And I heard someone interviewing you and listened to it, and I was absolutely appalled. And I said, Logan, we've got to get her on our broadcast so she can tell more
Thank
people.
you.
I'm sure a lot of our audience has heard it, even though I haven't, which, I follow the news and everything, but I can't follow every story. So somehow this got, past me, but I'm glad I know about it now. But for those who don't know about it, Martha, tell us the story. Tell us what your husband's going through and how this happened.
So my husband was an NYPD sergeant hero in the 90s and earned 78 medals. He was very, very successful on the NYPD, worked in the Bronx, busiest precinct in all of New York City, and had a severe car accident on the job and had to retire. Became a private investigator, changed his life and his career, and was very successful at that. And in 2016, got a routine call from a translation company in Queens, New York. Very routine case, looking for some assets, some surveillance, background checks, things like that. Very common. And he hired 2 NYPD detectives who were also PIs for the job. Did some surveillance, notified the local police he was doing surveillance. And then in April 2017, did a couple of days on the case, made a few $1,000s, never thought about it again. And then on October 28th, 2020, they came to my house, the FBI, and arrested my husband for violating the FARA Act, which is the Foreign Agents Registration Act, and interstate stalking. A few things about that which were outrageous at the time. We thought, well, first of all, my husband had saved every invoice and every documentation, and he didn't see anything where there was a foreign government at all, because there wasn't. And he notified the local police he was doing surveillance, and no one ever saw him. So how could that be stalking? So he's like, I'm going to fight this because it must be a huge mistake. And the DOJ had made this big conspiracy case with people that were doing all these other things that had nothing to do with him at all. And I said, you're never going to take a plea deal. And he said, no, of course not. I did nothing wrong. We're going to fight this. And the DOJ, when they hear that, all they do is double down on you. So they want to bankrupt you. They want to do all these things to you, pressure you. And we started getting our discovery. We're like, we're going to fight this. It's going to cost us probably millions of dollars, but we're going to fight this. And we started getting our discovery. And then everything in the discovery proved that he was innocent as well. And some of it was encrypted, which we couldn't open. And they just make your life very, very difficult. So we finally realized we're going to go to trial on this. But we were happy because we had all the evidence. We had interviews that said he was innocent. There was a civil lawsuit against the subject that he had followed, who was a Chinese Wuhan official, it turned out to be, here illegally. Yes. Someone had sued him for $30 million and had a successful $15 million judgment against him. We thought, well, that's good for us because my husband was hired on a civil matter. So it kind of proved that whoever hired him was looking for some civil direction, never asked him to do anything illegal. And my husband spoke freely to the arresting officer for an hour and a half, and it was clear that he was innocent. Well, when we got to trial, he wasn't allowed to use his interrogation video. We couldn't talk about the $30 million lawsuit against the man. We couldn't talk about him being a high-ranking CCP official who had committed crimes in China and in the United States, including immigration fraud, and his wife. We couldn't ask him about anything to do with any of his illegal activities in this country. And no one testified against my husband in this trial. So how was he found guilty?
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Let me just stop you right there for a second, though. So this seems to be a common theme I'm hearing, that if you go to trial, if you do not agree to cop to a lower deal, whatever their deal is they're offering you, and you go to trial, that it's rigged. That the judge and everything, and the prosecutor and the DOJ, they're all playing on the same team, and they're going to set the rules because you're not dealing with a judge that's biased. And they're going to set the rules so the jury never hears the reality or the truth of a case, so you're guaranteed to lose. How many times have I heard this in the last few years? Over and over and over. The jury was not allowed to hear this. The jury was not allowed to hear that. And jurors later find out, well, if we had known that, we would have given a different verdict, right?
Right.
So this, one of the people that I've interviewed quite a bit and has written a book about this is Sidney Powell. She's written a book about this, right? She's speaking for our fall conference this coming October. She knows, these federal prosecutors know how the game is played, but it seems as though the judge, that's the biggest thing people probably maybe shock people. Your judges are in on this, are they not?
Well, let me give you an example. So we knew that one of the FBI agents, his name is Robert Riley, one of the agents involved in this case in the New Jersey office, was having active communications with the CCP Wuhan official who was the alleged victim. Like they were having communications via emails, things like that. And on the sidebar, which you kind of learn after the trial, you start reading the sidebars and you hear this argument going, why can't we ask him about these thank you notes? He's getting thank you notes about his immigration. He's getting clearly some sort of assistance, and the judge doesn't allow it. And you go, how is that possible? Why would that be? And we didn't get one ruling in our favor in 4.5 years. Not one motion, not one ruling at court and trial did we get in our favor. Nothing in 4.5 years. I think those odds are incredible.
Yes, they are.
So how could you, it's so clearly they're handicapping you and they're deliberately doing it so that they can win. I mean, when the judge said that he wasn't allowed to put his interrogation video in, which clearly shows that he didn't know what was going on, that he did nothing wrong and nothing illegal. That's when it really hit me. Like, we're never going to win. And then the prosecutors manufactured evidence to the jury, like literally made it up. They talked about a meeting at a mall in New Jersey, which never happened. They made up an elaborate story about it. They were running through the neighborhood. They were being followed. It never happened. There's no evidence of it. There's no photographs of it. My husband wasn't anywhere near a mall. And then the case agent in this case, Christopher Bruno, he never testified at the trial. And I asked someone who was in the FBI formerly, I said, have you ever heard in your life that a case agent who worked on a case for 4 years, an investigation in 4 years, didn't testify? He said, no. I said, and B, there were 5 members of US law enforcement connected to this case, okay? The FBI never spoke to any of them during their 4 years of this investigation, but they were working with the Chinese plenty of times, interviewing them, talking to them, letting them leave the country. It is the most backwards case I don't think this country is, I mean, this country may have ever seen, because if you're assisting our greatest enemy, the CCP, and you're allowing them to run the show, which is what was happening here, what does that say about our national security?
Exactly.
How could, right? Why wouldn't you bring in NYPD, these 3 NYPD detectives who obviously have incredible careers, stellar careers? And my husband had spoken to 2 federal agents about this case back in 2016. They never brought them in either. There was something else going on that was, you know, suspicious to me. And when I wrote the book, and you read the book, the reader can see. I don't have to say or have my opinion about anything. The facts tell the story. It is completely outrageous. But what's so interesting about the book is that, you know, you and I talk about this here. We're saying that we know because we've been in the world of it. We hear the stories. But the everyday American thinks my husband's a Chinese spy. Why? Because they made up stories. They leaked them to the press, made it sound like it was true. You know, that's all well and good. I guess that's the game. But you do that, you put people's lives in danger. You put my children's lives in danger. You put my husband in the crosshairs of dangerous people, and they don't care. They don't care. So I had to go out and kind of, you know, argue this. And so he was found guilty in June of 2023. And then you're waiting to be sentenced, which is another excruciating almost 2 years. Okay. And in the meantime, you're trying to get some sense here. Like, is anybody going to stand up and say this was wrong? And we didn't win any rulings. We lost our post-trial motions. We didn't get any rulings. We didn't get nothing. And then to sit in the courtroom and hear the judge put my husband in federal prison. He's never done anything wrong in his life. The alleged victims couldn't identify him in court. They couldn't point him out. Nobody testified against him. He's not allowed to talk about his incredible career in the NYPD. She gave him 18 months. You know why? She said because he had no remorse for the victims. Now,
and who were the victims? Who were the victims?
The victims were, so, oh, I have my camera. What's happening there? So the Jinzhou, who was the victim, again, former Wuhan official, fled China in 2010. He was like the mayor of Wuhan, okay? He was not just some guy in, you know, a part of the CCP. He was a high-ranking Wuhan official who was accused of embezzlement and bribes and had stolen tens and hundreds of millions of dollars and was fled here to the country. He was not a dissident. His wife also committed immigration fraud. There's a clear case of some sort of money laundering real estate thing going on between them. And then we come to find out recently that he donated to Hillary Clinton's campaign in 2016 as a wanted Chinese fugitive to her campaign. Now, I'm sorry, if you're hiding from the CCP, why are you donating to Hillary Clinton's foundation or presidential campaign under your own name, and you're pretending that you're, you know, being bothered? So and they perjured themselves on the stand to put my husband in prison. Okay, they made up things on the stand. So my husband's not going to have any remorse because he did nothing wrong. These people are lying to put him in federal prison, and they're criminals.
And so for that, she puts him in jail for 18 months. Now, when did he show up to start serving this time?
A week ago yesterday. So he's been gone for 8 days.
And how is he being treated so far?
Well, I'll tell you. My husband is a hero among heroes. And he didn't get to where he was in his career by not being able to communicate, not being able to understand people, not being an empathetic person. But he also understands the system because he was a part of the system. But he was a good guy. You know, he was a good cop, but he's a low security prison. I mean, this is not a camp. This is somewhere where it is. He's in Michigan. He's 600 miles away from our family, and we didn't even know where he was going until like 5 days beforehand, and we didn't know where he had to surrender. Nobody told us. I found out by accident. So when I tell you it's been a whirlwind to leave him there and get on a plane. And knowing he's innocent and he could possibly get hurt or, you know, cops are not the most favorable guests in any prison. So I left him there on his own to survive, literally, you know, and I've never been apart from him for more than 2 weeks for 34 years. And I've been fighting for him. And people have been so wonderful that have come forward, but it's gotten to this point now. And we have to get him out of there.
Now, these are federal charges, right?
Yes, yes.
So where is the Trump administration on this? By the way, have you been able to reach out to one of our broadcast friends who's been on the program, who's sat in a host about 30, 40 times on this network? Our friend, Logan? Yeah, Ed Martin.
So Ed actually wrote a comment for my book. He wrote an endorsement for my book. He's on the second page.
So Ed knows about this then. Okay.
Oh yes. And the pardon has been pushed all the way. You know, the clemency request has been vetted and it's moving and it's, you know, these things take time. I understand that.
So the good news is your husband may not be there very long.
Right. I pray every day. I pray every day, because every day that he's away from us is one day that he shouldn't be there for doing nothing wrong.
Exactly. Now I want to go back to that because the whole story is just so. Your husband has this great career as an NYPD. What was he, a detective?
He was a sergeant and a detective, so he was in charge of Mm-hmm.
And he gets all these awards, like 78. You said. Yes. And he retires after a car injury, and he starts becoming an investigator. And someone calls him up and says, what? We want you to do what? So the woman calls up and says, my client needs someone, a licensed private investigator in New Jersey. My client had millions of dollars stolen from his business, his family business, and he's looking for the money. Like, they want to know, like, does the guy have houses? Does he have car? Like, that's what happens in these cases where someone has stolen money from a business. They want to know, do they put a new addition on the house? Do they, you know, what's their lifestyle, like a day in the life kind of thing. So my husband does do that job. He runs and he sees that there are LLCs with millions of dollars of real estate, residential real estate under this man's name and his family. So he gives his client, he does a surveillance. He's never seen, right? He does surveillance reports. And that's it. And he gives over the information and he moves on with his life. Okay, so and he makes a few. Well, it makes a few $1,000s for doing this. Yes. So why was he targeted? How did they find out he was doing this? And what is the motivation for doing this to your family? I think this has to do with China only. I think that arresting my husband the week before the 2020 election, he makes news, okay? He makes the media. And there was a lot going on with China right around the election with Hunter Biden's laptop. And you know, I'm not a conspiracy theorist person, but I do know for 100%, based on, you can read it in the book too, that there was a real focus on China and getting some sort of, you know, media about China about the week before the election. And here's what I'm going to tell you. Since this has happened, we have gotten so much information that Mike never should have been arrested as a private investigator, because there were other cases involving China where they did use PIs to do surveillance. And those PIs were never arrested in New York cases. They kept this case quiet in New Jersey. They didn't want New York FBI to find out about it, that they were using Mike in some sort of way. They hid it from their supervisors. This is a very, very bad case, meaning somebody wanted a white American. He was the only American ever arrested in these cases. And what is the headline they were after? What do you think the crafted headline they were looking for, if it's for political reasons before an election? Biden administration catches American Chinese spy? It was right before the election. So it was that the DOJ wanted to look like they were doing something against China, because
Trump was all about, what are we doing about China? What are we doing about China? Why are we not doing harder on China? Now, the election's coming up, right? And then you have Biden, who's in bed with Chinese. Obviously, Hunter was heavily involved with China. So this was kind of an optics case, because it was good for one side to look like they were doing something, cracking down a bit. And it was good for the other side, which was if Biden was saying, well, they're kind of not sort of really doing anything. Because on the day of my husband's arrest, this will give you a clue. Now that we know that Christopher Wray was involved in the election, the ballots that were in, I guess, in Albany. I guess they had a case where they had found Chinese ballots, this and that, and they kept it quiet. The day of my husband's arrest, there were 2 letters that came from the FBIAA, which is an organization of all these former FBI agents, retired, and this and that, and current, and this and that. One went to the Trump administration, and one went to the Biden team. And both letters said, please keep Christopher Wray in his position, either one, whoever wins, okay? It was a calculated move to try to keep him in place. Because if you watch the press conference at my husband's arrest, Christopher Wray doesn't know anything about this case. He doesn't have any clue. He doesn't know any details. So I called the FBIAA and I said, who told you to write those letters? Where did that come from? And they said it came from the top. So what I'm telling you is my husband made news. And I know for a fact that there were people that did not want my husband to be arrested, told it was a mistake. He never should have been involved in this at all because he did nothing wrong. And this was completely outside the scope of what these Chinese operations were doing in the United States. And somebody wanted to build their resume, build their ego, make news. And I'm sorry, you don't sacrifice, first of all, our national security by not contacting my family and protecting them. Okay, that's one of the bigger issues. You don't just go willy-nilly and decide to arrest somebody when you have no probable cause. Do you realize that the search warrants that they had on our family, there was they lied on the search warrants. There was no probable cause. What these people did in the Red Bank, New Jersey FBI field office, which is it's only a handful of them, okay? It's only a handful, maybe just 2. They broke protocol. They spied on our family. They followed us. They went through every piece of our personal information with no justifiable reason to do it. And it's horrifying. And if they could do it to us, they could do it to anybody. They did it to the president, for God's sakes.
Yes.
So that's why I know when President Trump hears the details of this case, he's going to say, they're at it again.
Does he know that?
Same players.
Do you think he has heard this yet, Martha?
I do. I really do. I think that he does know. In my heart, I do. Because there's enough people that have supported us, that have been coming through the administration, or like Congressman Mike Lawler, and phenomenal man, okay? He wrote a letter to the president in support of Mike very recently. We've had so much support from so many different areas and directions. I do believe that he is aware of the case, and I'm only saying that because in my heart, I feel like he does, and I want him to.
And that something happens soon, because the story is tragic, no doubt about it, but it's not just about your family, which it obviously is about your family, but it's not just about your family, because as you just said, this could happen to any of us. Anybody's family, anyone watching tonight can get a knock at the door and find themselves being arrested on trumped up charges that you know you're innocent of. You have all the proof to show you're innocent, but then all that information is not allowed at the trial because the whole legal system is rigged.
Yeah, it's really sad.
We were not living in a free society.
No, we're not.
Prior to interviewing you, I said to my radio audience earlier this week, on another matter that we were talking about, I said, look, we just celebrated the 4th of July. I believe in patriotism. I want to promote patriotism. We should be patriotic. But let's not confuse patriotism with today's reality of liberty and freedom. Am I patriotic? Yes. Do I want to encourage patriotism, as I said? Yes. But part of patriotism is speaking truth.
Yes.
And we don't have liberty and freedom like we think we do, or like many people perceive we do, when we know the things that are going on in this country that are gross violation of the United States Constitution and our rights given to us by God. Government doesn't give us our rights. Our rights come to us by God. They're to be protected by the government. But these are God-given rights being trampled by the government. And so
Correct.
We're not living in a free society. And if this can happen under the last administration, continue into this administration, which I hope this administration fixes, but if it doesn't, then the message is sent that federal agents and the courts can violate all protocol, all procedures, and all constitutional rights of any American citizen they want for whatever political gain or agenda they might have, which means we are not living in a free society. And frankly, we are all living on borrowed time, because as soon as one of us says something the government doesn't like, they can show up and destroy your life and take your freedom.
Yeah. And I think what happened was my husband didn't take a plea deal.
And what would that really look like, Martha? What would that look
who knows? Who knows? They don't tell you. They just, they barely talked to him about that. And they knew that he was not going to take a plea deal. And so what happens with that in the positive sense is that they have to start giving you discovery, and they don't want to do that because there's stuff in there that they don't want you to see. So they keep it out and they encrypt it, which with us, they encrypted it so deeply we couldn't even open our discovery, which you've heard about those ghost files now. You're hearing a lot about that now. They're like, well, we handed it over. Well, they handed it over, but then you can't open it and they won't help you open it. But we fought back, and that's something they didn't expect. So when we started seeing that they were lying and they were communicating with the CCP members and they were assisting the CCP members and they were working with the Chinese agents who were coming here and going, and I'm thinking, okay, wait a minute, we're onto something deeper here that we need to fight for our country. And my husband feels like he's deployed right now. That's the word he used. I feel like I'm being deployed for the American people so that I can fight for their freedoms, for their future. Because I will tell you this, there are investigations going on in this case already. It already has started. I'm going back to DC next week. It's going to continue. Because when someone is held accountable, when someone, it could be just one, we all win, because it will stop. As soon as they see that there's some sort of repercussions for this behavior and there's some sort of accountability for this behavior, losing a pension, getting whatever you want to use, that's how we start winning. And prosecutors have immunity, and so do FBI. They have immunity. So they can say anything they want and know they're not going to get in trouble. And I think to myself, yeah, but you still have to be a good person. Like, where's your moral compass to do the right thing? And it's thrown out the window. Okay. Yeah. Absolutely thrown out the window. Okay. I cannot tell you how my husband's like, I was on the NYPD. If I behaved the way that these case agents and these FBI agents, these prosecutors, I would have been a pariah. I would have been fired in NYPD. First of all, I couldn't show my face to anybody ever again because I lied and I perjured myself to win. They wouldn't. The standards were so different. So when he started saying like that he couldn't use his evidence, he's like, "What do you mean I can't use my evidence? What are you talking about?" Like that to him was just a kick in the teeth, and it kept coming and going. And they're brutal. They are
part
brutal.
Of the goal here,
evil.
Martha, is part of the goal here to use your husband also as an example to say to anyone in the future, you go along, you accept your charges, you plead, you accept a deal, because otherwise it's going to be worse for you. Look at what happened to Martha and her husband. Are they trying now? Are they using guys like him to set the example?
I think that was the initial goal, like to show PIs, like we can get you too, PIs, private investigators. But here's the problem with that. PIs park on public streets. They don't do anything illegal. They took legal work and made it look sketchy, but it wasn't. So not only do PIs park on public streets, what else? Who else does? News organizations, insurance companies do things like this. So they made a really bad decision. So they've never charged another private investigator after my husband. It's over. And then the oversight committee, James Comer's oversight committee in October of 24, wrote a huge report on the CCP, and the Department of Justice got a failing grade because of my husband's case, saying it really looks to appear to be weaponization of government, and he never should have been prosecuted in the first place. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but that's what it says, which was They got the worst grade of all the agencies across, I think they did 25 agencies. The DOJ failed miserably because of my husband's case. So our fight has stopped this random overreach on people doing their job. It's like you can't arrest a plumber for changing a pipe, right? Like you can't arrest a private investigator for doing surveillance and background searches and doing that's their job. That's what they do. That's what police do. That's what FBI agents do. That's what paparazzi sometimes does, or investigators do. You can't criminalize the job, right? So we were fighting for all private investigators because the business would be done. You know, if someone's parked on the street, they could say, FBI, I want them arrested because they're parking on the public street. And they could do it based on my husband's case. That is a really scary thing.
Absolutely it is. I want to show this before I play it. Can you tell me what we're about to see here?
So we were ready to fly out, and I wanted to document my husband's last day because I knew he was in so much pain and he could finally be free to speak. And I wanted to capture for everyone to understand where he was emotionally and what we were going through as a family. It's really hard for me to watch that, but I also lived it. So I wanted people to understand the kind of pain and destruction they've caused a hero and a man who served his entire life to service. I mean, he's done so many jobs pro bono just for people that are innocent. Like he's a hero.
Let me play a little bit of this so
Go
people can learn a little bit more about him personally here.
All right, tell me how you feel right now.
Nervous, a little anxious. I feel like I'm on deployment of some sort, that I'm doing this for the better good. It has to be done to help other people.
And how do you feel?
I hope it does.
How do you feel about the people that did this to you right now? How do you feel about why you're here right now?
The evil people.
What do you feel about them, like, betraying their badge and their oath based on what you've lived in your life?
You know, we were held to a high standard, NYPD. I guess they aren't. I guess some of the agents got away or can get away with anything. And that's disappointing for everybody else in law enforcement that does a good job and is respectful of the laws of our country. And I just hope they get called out, and I hope they get fired or arrested or, you know.
Accountability. What's the saying? Without accountability, nothing changes.
Yeah. Hold them accountable.
Yep.
Shame.
Yep.
You know who you are.
Yep.
That's pitiful. I want to show one other, though. And this is one, I guess he's about to surrender, because this looks like he's on the grounds, right? This one here?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Here we go.
Good. All right.
I'm here. Can't believe I'm here. Milan, Michigan. Unbelievable. Corrupt FBI agents. Unbelievable.
I don't know how they sleep at night, any of them. There's a war on our country, and we're fighting it for you.
There's a war on our country, and we're fighting it for you. Martha, as we get ready to conclude here, I don't want to invade, too much here, but your husband seems like obviously a pretty tough guy. I'm sure he's seen very tough things, and I'm sure he's seen things that he's had a hard time dealing with, that involve children and infants and innocent people. So he's at some level also a hardened guy because of the nature of what he's had to see. Just kind of makes you a little bit more tougher. But both those videos, I don't know your husband, but both those videos seem like this very tough former NYPD officer and sergeant and detective. He seems almost a little weepy.
Yeah.
Is that a right characterization?
The betrayal of the people who he thought would have been his fighters standing next to him in arms, which he's worked with federal agents in his cases. He's a 9/11 first responder, my husband. He's had several surgeries for his illness, due to 9/11 illness. He's a hero. The betrayal, that's what you're seeing in his eyes. That he's so betrayed by the justice system that he fought so hard for and would demand justice for the innocent. I mean, he worked on a case pro bono of a young man who was falsely accused of murder. He worked for free because he knew the kid was innocent. He did a boots on the ground case, put posters up, and he found the real killers.
Wow.
Because he knew this kid was going to go to jail for the rest of his life. Okay? That's my husband. That's how he's wired. So to see this evil, dark side of the justice system go after him and our family, what they've done to what they've done to our family.
How old are your children, can I ask?
My oldest son just became a police officer, and he's 27, and he's amazing and has been just inspired by my husband, and he's doing this in his honor for his dad. And my middle son is 22, and he's very successful. Works mechanic supervisor, and my daughter's a freshman in college in 19. They're doing so well, despite what they've tried to break up our family. And I said to the judge in my letter, and she never even talked about me when she was sentencing him. She said, my children will be fine because they're adults. She never even mentioned me. Like, doesn't my relationship and our marriage mean anything in our bond that we've fought through this together as a unit, a family unit? And now she's tearing it apart because of whatever reason. But you see betrayal and hurt. It's like such hurt, because you're right. He's the toughest guy I know. He's seen people jump out of buildings. He's run into burning buildings. He's taken on gunfire. He was busy every single day on the job, and he saw horrific things. But it counted for nothing, he felt like. It felt like he did this his entire life. No one cared. They didn't take it into consideration. It didn't matter. It was ignored. It was dismissed. It was put in the garbage can. She could have let him stay home. Is he really a threat? Does he need to be locked up in federal prison for what? For nothing.
No, this audience knows I have said over and over for years on my radio show and TV show that we need criminal justice reform or prison reform, whatever you want to call it. We should not be putting non-violent people in prison, period. No, your husband, first of all, should never have been tried. This should never happen. Right. But never. Like you just said, why would you put a guy like that in jail? We're throwing too many people in prison, and it destroys their lives, their families, or at least damages them in great detail. But you're right, from a common sense standpoint, how it got to this point blows my mind. But two, why would you look at this guy and say, oh yeah, he's a threat to society? You would say, like you said, sentence him at home. But the whole thing doesn't make sense. The whole thing makes zero sense. But this is not the first case. I've been doing this 35 years, Martha, interviewing people on radio. I have interviewed so many different people through the years. This is sadly a common thing in America where, people say, well, everybody in prison is innocent. Well, we're starting to realize there are a lot of innocent people in prison. Yeah,
that's true. I mean, especially in federal cases, because the pressure and the bullying that goes on. I mean, they don't win 99% of the cases because they're that good. Okay. Please give me a break. How do they indict 99% of the people? And those odds are unbelievable. And there's a reason for that, because they lie and they make things up and they suppress. And I will tell you this, if we can help create some sort of change, and this is all for that purpose, then we would have done something good out of this in the future for other people.
Is your husband going to do the whole 18 months? I mean, you hopefully he'll get pardoned, but with good behavior, what's the soonest he can be out if he doesn't get pardoned, which we pray he does?
I have no idea. It really changes from person to person. I mean, I have no idea, because they don't really tell you anything. You're really going against nothingness. You don't know. And everybody's different. It depends on so many different factors. I mean, the First Step Act, it should help him because clearly he's never done anything wrong in his life. But I just don't know because
are you allowed to talk to him every day?
I could talk to him twice a day for 15 minutes each on the phone, and that's it. And you know, it's not. He shouldn't be where he is. I mean, the fact that he was charged, you know, convicted of a stalking charge, that's considered like a bodily harm charge, and it's a violent charge. And they never even saw him. So for him to be serving this heavy duty sentence for people who couldn't even say who he was, I mean, stalking. I'm sorry, you know, he was NYPD. You're stalking. You need photographs. You need evidence. There was no police reports. There was nothing. Nothing. So these people never called the local police to file charges ever. Nothing. They never, not one police report. They called the FBI. These people, because they were working with the FBI.
And I noticed the forward is by Eddie Gallagher. We interviewed his brother, who I think is Sean Gallagher, multiple times while Eddie was waiting, you know, trial. And I've talked to Eddie a couple times since then. So that's who wrote the forward. There's another example, right? I mean, we have so many we can talk about. That we've had his wife, Andrea, on our network being interviewed by our friends, Billy and his wife, Vaughn. So, I mean, these are not, the Gallagher story is another one, just very similar like we're talking about now. I do want to promote the book again. And by the way, I'm guessing your family has a large attorney fees still, right? Millions
of dollars. We owe millions of dollars right now, millions. And that's it. Eddie Gallagher, the Pipehitter Foundation.org. That Eddie and Andrew have been behind us from the beginning and been fantastic, and they're our heroes. But that's a perfect example of taking something so horrible and doing good from it. And we want to help them and with the next people. But Eddie and Andrew are incredible. Yeah, we're going to be. I don't know if we'll ever be able to pay back the legal bills that have built. But listen, we can make more money, but we can't get our integrity back. And my husband has worked too hard and done too much good in his life to let these people get away with this. And, you know, call my husband a traitor to the country, which he is the opposite of that. And I'm so proud of him. And I want him to come home and help other people. And it's going to happen. It's just, this is outrageous. I mean, it is.
And we're going to ask our audience to pray for him and his safety and his spirit.
Thank you.
Pray for you, your family.
Thank you.
Protection of your son, the police officer. Pray for the work that Ed Martin is doing, that this gets to the desk of the president and it gets done in a very quick manner, and he can be home very soon. And in the meantime, I do hope people will get the book, In the Interest of Justice, to get it at Amazon. You can follow her on X, folks. I'm going to show her X account here so you guys can get it right. So there it is. You got to spell her name correctly. I was spelling with B-U, but it's B-Y. So Martha, because I was looking for her X account earlier. So making sure you spell it at Martha and then B-Y-R-N-E and then number 10. And you're giving updates on there regularly, correct?
Every day. And listen, if you want to learn a lot about what's going on with this case, follow my account because I am naming names and there's a lot of things going on that are pretty powerful right now. Let me tell you. And it's going to get very soon, there's going to be even more coming out about what's happening.
Well, you're welcome back here anytime. And
thank you.
And we want to get an update. So we would love to have you back whenever you need to come back to give information. But we'd love to have you back as this progresses. And maybe very soon you can come on and tell us that you're on your way to Michigan and pick him up.
God, from your mouth to God's ears, God is guiding us here. He is guiding us through this. And he's succeeding and keeping us safe and our hearts full of love. And we are very blessed. We're a blessed family across the board. So thank you.
Wow. To even hear you say that you're a blessed family with all you're going through. That speaks character.
We are.
Speaks character.
We are.
Martha, thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Get her book, folks. Get their book, In the Interest of Justice. And as I said, pray for them, okay? And their family, and pray for Ed Martin and then President Trump to work on this speedily, and we'll keep you posted. But pray for them. The Bible says the prayers of the righteous availeth much. And I believe that, don't you? To pray for this family. We'll be right back.
true beauty isn't applied. It's nourished from within. Bella Grace Elixir, a luxurious, scientifically crafted blend designed to restore radiance, vitality, and strength at a cellular level. At the heart of Bella Grace Elixir lies cat's claw, a powerful herb from the Amazon known for its ability to control inflammation and protect collagen. With Verisol collagen peptides, it goes beyond the surface, stimulating your body's natural collagen production to reduce fine lines, improve skin elasticity, and promote real, visible change. Bella Grace Elixir doesn't stop at collagen. It includes astaxanthin, one of nature's most powerful antioxidants. 6,000 times stronger than vitamin C, astaxanthin protects your skin from harmful UV rays and environmental stress, while locking in hydration and promoting a radiant, youthful glow. Experience the power of nature with Bella Grace Elixir at melissahousebg.com. Discover the science behind Bella Grace Elixir at melissahousebg.com. Read powerful testimonials from doctors and real customers who've experienced life-changing results, and explore other wellness products from Bella Grace. Bella Grace Elixir is more than just a product. It's a solution. Visit melissahousebg.com today.
Joining me now is Patrick Wood. Look at this headline right here, folks. The Trilateral Commission has erased its blackmailer-in-chief, Jeffrey Epstein. Talk about that. And then the new American Party being started by Elon Musk. He's bringing somebody in? Who is he bringing in? What does it say? Let's go to Patrick Wood of Technocracy.news, Technocracy.news.
Wow.
Hello, Patrick. How are you today?
Hello. Just really good.
All right. Let's go.
If it weren't that the Lord gives us strength and joy, we would not even be here at all.
That's true.
I'm sure.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Trilateral Commission has erased its blackmailer-in-chief, Jeffrey Epstein. Why did you choose that headline?
Well, here's the deal. Jeffrey Epstein was a member of the Trilateral Commission. Period. End of subject. This was not widely reported anywhere.
I've never heard of it till now.
But I had the list, the membership list, and he was a member of the Trilateral Commission.
And explain to those who maybe don't know what that is. That's not some, people say about back in 2017, this neo-Calvinist woman was on social media saying, Brandon House, he's a conspiracy theorist. He talks about the Trilateral Commission. And I wasn't even talking about it very much back in 2017 or any time. I really wasn't. I was like, really? What shows? I mean, maybe Dennis Cuddy or a few other of them mentioned it, but I didn't really start talking about the Trilateral Commission that much until I started interviewing you, unless I was quoting the book by the former U.S. Senator from Arizona who ran for president, which was Barry Goldwater, who Reagan campaigned for. So if being crazy means you talk about the Trilateral Commission, then that means Barry Goldwater was crazy, which means then Ronald Reagan was crazy. But what do these neo-Calvinists know? They're stupid people. That so funny. They run around talking about they're concerned about the word of faith and Paula White. I don't care for Paula White's theology, but these neo-Calvinist guys out there running around talking about they're concerned about these false teachers and their false gospel. I'm like, dudes and dudettes, you freaks, you neo-Calvinist freaks, look in the mirror. You're going to burn in hell with the people you're going after because you as yourself believe in a false gospel and you're false teachers. But these are the freaks on social media back in 2017 saying, because they were trying to discredit me because I was exposing interfaith dialogue with James White and Yasser Qadi, and they all worship John MacArthur, think he walks on water. And so they thought, well, we'll discredit House by claiming he's a conspiracy theorist that talks about the Trilateral Commission. I'm like, it's not a conspiracy. It's a legitimate organization. So for those who maybe are new, tell us what the Trilateral Commission is first.
Number one, when it was started in 1973, its co-founders were David Rockefeller. That was the chair. He was the chairman of Chase Bank at that point. And Zbigniew Brzezinski, the well-known strategist and academic who came into the Carter administration as a national security advisor. And these were the people that founded modern globalization. That's my strong opinion. I have one book on it and another coming soon. And we wrote, myself and Anthony Sutton wrote the definitive works back in 1978 through 1981 about the Trilateral Commission. These books still stand as a definitive expose, if you will, of the Trilateral Commission. However, these people are so mean-spirited. You cannot believe the junk that we've put up with these people. Number one, they destroyed Anthony Sutton's career at Stanford University. He worked as a research fellow for this Hoover Institution. He was a world-class researcher, had many books to his credit at that point. But when he started to investigate the Trilateral Commission, he didn't understand that the president of Stanford University at the time, well, he knew who this guy was, David Packard. He was a founding member of the Trilateral Commission. Well, they just froze Sutton out. They basically just destroyed his career at that point.
Well, if it's such a shadowy group, why do they hold their conferences and then put their name of their group right on the back wall? The Trilateral Commission. Here, I mean, this is an article where I guess they had an event in Brussels in 2024. I don't know if they've had one in 2025 yet, but you go online, you can find all kinds of meetings where they got their name all over. So if it's some kind of shadowy conspiracy made up group like the freaks in the neo-Calvinist world out there on social media saying, which again, if they want to worry, they ought to worry about the false god they worship, because the God of John Calvin is a false god. He doesn't exist, by the way. So you're believing in a false God and a false Jesus for salvation. So talk about believing in false things, that would be you guys. But there it is. It's not a false group. They actually have their name on the wall. They're happy to promote themselves. They're a real group.
Absolutely so. And when 1980 rolled around, when Reagan was just elected, they put out a memo stating that our books, that was Trilaterals over Washington, volumes 1 and 2, our books were out of print and the publisher was out of business. And I was a publisher at the time, the August Corporation. And this was a bald-faced lie that they put out to all the B. Dalton booksellers, stores around the world. And our sales they literally collapsed overnight.
Really?
Because of this memo. And, so they basically just deep sixed us. Similarity is amazing. Well, they've been doing this type of censorship. This is not just normal censorship, you understand. This is destroying people's careers summarily, and they always have made their move in the shadows. They never get in the limelight where they can be blamed for anything. But we know for a fact, I was an eyewitness there. It was my company that got destroyed. That this was a bald-faced lie they produced on us by sending this memo out to everybody.
And the memo said that
that the books were out of print and the publisher was out of business. But we were not out of business, and the books were still in print. And we discovered then that the parent company, who owned B. Dalton Booksellers at that point, had a member of the Trilateral Commission on its board of directors. There you go. Just like what happened with Tony Sutton, with the president of Stanford being a member of the Trilateral Commission as well.
And if this group is so non-existent, why do they have a website, trilateral.org? So they are a real group. They have a website. There it is.
And you know what? Anybody can go and download the membership list from that website that you're showing right now. You're not going to be, well, they might know who you are, but nevertheless, the membership is always on that page right here. You see it right there. There you go. That's it. I have so many of these lists over the years. I made a practice to always keep the list updated. But there you go. This is not a private. Well, it's a private club, but they have things like this. You can discover who's on the board of directors and who the movers and shakers are. And I tell you what, you look at that list of people, it just completely, it'll floor you every time.
All right, so at
fast
one
forward.
point you got the list, and like we're scrolling through right now, and at one point the list included Jeffrey Epstein as a member.
That's right. That's exactly right. He was a member in good standing. He attended the meetings. And my question has always been, what did he bring to the Trilateral Commission? Because the people that they always selected, they had a selection committee. You didn't apply to join. You had to be tapped to be inducted in membership. So somebody said, let's go and tap Jeffrey Epstein to be part of the club. Well, what did he bring to the club? You have media moguls, you have industrial giants, you have high-ranking politicians, you have legal firms, you have the bankers, central bankers, and mucky-muck bankers like Larry Fink, et cetera. And so what did Jeffrey Epstein come to the table with? He was a transhumanist, for one thing, for sure. He spent lots of money for transhuman organizations. He was a technocrat. Certainly, he's been described that way by many people over the years. And, he was a blackmailer also. I mean, this could really be interesting for the Trilateral Commission. But he didn't have any redeeming qualities that I could find that would recommend him for the Trilateral Commission. And of course, I'm speculating here that his purpose was not to deliver that kind of value, but rather the value of blackmail operations to compromise people who would not go along with the narrative.
Listen to what Mike Benz had to say about all this. Here we go. Listen to this.
Is this a case where DOJ overpromised, underdelivered? What happened?
What often happens in these cases, in fact, the JFK files have really interesting CIA memos on the kind of knife fight they have with the Justice Department when their own assets are being prosecuted. I think that Pam Bondi did not know what she was stepping into and had assumed it was like what most of MAGA world had said about the corruption of Bill Barr and the corruption of the Biden administration, and that they sort of jumped the horses out the gate, thinking that they would be able to conduct a normal investigation, and then
this was a little bit above a few people's
Birdie started talking in the ears of senior DOJ officials, I think of senior intelligence officials. The fact that there has been not even an attempt to try to answer about Epstein's intelligence links, after frankly damning statements by Alex Acosta and a complete non-investigation by the Bill Barr Justice Department on that. To me, it's a giant stinker, and the idea that this is just going to go away is just not going to happen.
And again, he brings up this guy Acosta, and I want to go to another tweet about that because I have, here we go, Roger Stone, who was on the show last night. He put out yesterday, when Alexander Acosta, the U.S. Attorney for South Florida, who gave Epstein a pass on sex trafficking charges, was appointed Secretary of Labor, was asked what he would say about his handling of the Epstein case if asked about it in his U.S. Senate confirmation hearings. Acosta said, quote, "I'll tell you the truth. He worked for the CIA, and the case was sealed at their request," end quote.
There you go. There you go.
So why do you think, let's go back to your article. We played it, we've already played it yesterday, but we'll play it again.
Yes.
Why do you think President Trump said this? Watch. Oh, maybe it's not going to play. I'll have to refresh that. Let me do that. I don't know why it's not going to play, but we'll try if this works.
Jeffrey Epstein, it left some lingering mysteries. One of the biggest ones is whether he ever worked for a American or foreign intelligence agency. The former labor secretary, who was Miami U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta, he allegedly said that he did work for an intelligence agency. So could you resolve whether or not he did? And also, could you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape on the night of the staff?
Yeah, sure. If
Could I just interrupt for 1 second? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein? This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to waste the time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this, where we're having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration, but you go ahead.
Sure.
All right, so there you go. Do you want me to play the rest of that, or is that enough, Patrick?
Well, when Bondi then said that all of those videos that were recovered, they're all child porn, she said. And you're not going to see the light of day on that, and we're not going to release them to anybody. And I would understand if that's really the case. Actually, if it wasn't the case, they're not going to release them anyway, because you're not going to show all these people being in that kind of a position.
All right, hold right there. You hear the music. We'll be back with more, including the American Party by Elon. Tease the audience here. Who is he calling in to be a part of that?
Curtis Yarvin.
Oh, we've heard that name before. Curtis Yarvin. Don't go away. Patrick Wood of Technocracy.news. Heard right here twice a week on Worldview 2. We'll be right back.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. Is the government tracking you? Do they have access to all your data? Well, if you go to worldviewtalk.com, you'll find out about a cell phone company that, well, does not store your data. They don't do that. This is what they're known for. They don't store your data. You have privacy. You're not being tracked. That's why a lot of folks are turning to worldviewtalk.com. You'll find their prices are very competitive. All the details are there at worldviewtalk.com. Again, worldviewtalk.com. Oh, while you're there, not only do they have cell phones that aren't tracking you, you can find out about how to get a satellite phone. Should the whole system go down and you want to communicate with a family member or a loved one, you might want to have a satellite phone. Or how about their solar generators? They have great solar generators. Check them all out right now. Worldviewtalk.com, worldviewtalk.com. All right, welcome back. Glad you guys are with us. Don't forget about us. Worldviewfoundation.com is another great way to support us as we continue to push out free Christian worldview programming. Because I don't think Fox News and other groups are going to do shows like we do. Do you? Worldviewfoundation.com. Don't forget our foundation also is our church. We have a Sunday night church service as I'm teaching through the book of Revelation right now, 8 p.m. Central Time, 9 Eastern, Sunday night. I'll be back this Sunday night as I continue teaching through Revelation chapter 17. All right. WorldviewTube.com to watch that, either live or on demand later. Again, thank you for your support. WorldviewFoundation.com. All right. Patrick Wood, Technocracy.news. Let's go back to your article on, what's his face? Jeffrey Epstein. So tell me, what's his face? So tell me why do you think President Trump came out and said what he did yesterday? Roger Stone was on my show last night. He said, I think President Trump also might be getting international pressure. Could it be from the royal family because of Prince Andrew?
Totally.
Other countries like the UK, Saudi Arabia, I don't know what other countries might be involved. What other countries might be involved that he's not going to be able to cut deals with them if he then turns out and releases all these videos and names of all of these people? So is he getting international pressure? Is that why this is personal now to President Trump? Because he campaigned on all this. Why the switch now?
Well, you're exactly right. He can't possibly release all the information. But in the meantime, the American public, we're getting the picture here. They're talking. They're fabricating a lie that it won't quit now. And this is incredulous that we have lost all trust in our government to be honest and transparent with us.
How much damage is this going to do to President Trump and the MAGA movement?
Probably nothing in the end, because the people who are controlling the narrative right now, and in particular the Trilateral Commission, this is the snake. This is the hydra-headed snake that's been controlling modern globalization for decades. These people are not going to go away. If you want to know where the people are controlling the narrative, look at the membership list. We can't do it right now, I understand. Anybody can get it downloaded, however, and look and see who's on this list. Mm-hmm. It'll shock you. So they're not going to let this information get out. And so Pam Bondi, for instance, is spinning the whole thing, saying, well, he didn't have any client list. Number one, and all the videos were just child porn videos that he downloaded himself personally. Give me a break. This has been discussed in the media openly over the years when the whole case was unfolding, that every video that they produced or they captured on all their hidden cameras around all of his properties, they were all recorded and sent upline or off-site to be stored somewhere. There were thousands of videos. Yes, there was. There's thousands of hours of videos as well. Where are those videos? Well, apparently, maybe Pam Bondi has access to them, and she probably got a wind of who was on them, people that she would recognize, like Bill Clinton, for instance, maybe even President Trump, I don't know. But Bill Gates, there you go. He was a frequent flyer on the Lolita Express, as they called it, right? You can't make this up.
Listen to what Mike Benz said on another show. Here we go.
What you're dealing with here is an international intelligence web. Take his role in Iran-Contra. That was illicit arms trafficking and money laundering for a CIA activity that violated international law. In that one operation alone, you have the CIA in the U.S., you have Israeli intelligence, you have UK intelligence, and you have Saudi intelligence. That's 4 different countries' intelligence agencies running through this single person. So if the CIA wants to, or DOD or NSC wants to protect its relationship with those countries, it's probably got to get a consensus with those intelligence agencies as well. Mike, what you're dealing with.
Yep. So there's no way this can all come out, because it would show that the entire government of the United States is really based on blackmail, kneecapping people. This is how they flip most politicians. This is how they run the whole country. And I guess the CIA and these groups can do it. I mean, after they blew the head off John F. Kennedy in '63 in broad daylight, they've pretty much been running the country, haven't they?
Remember that George H.W. Bush, a member of the Trilateral Commission, he was a president for four years after he has a vice president for 8 years with Reagan. Remember, this was the guy that started the modern CIA that we have right now in his earlier career.
And by the way,
he was head of the CIA.
What do we know about Ted Cruz and the Trilateral Commission? Do we know anything about Ted Cruz or his dad in the Trilateral?
He is not. He has not been a member, as far as I know. I've never seen his name on any membership list.
Okay.
And also his wife Heidi, she's not anything in it as all.
But
as
she
well.
has helped to push the North American Union idea.
Oh, absolutely,
Under George W.
absolutely
Bush.
so. Absolutely so.
The reason I mention is because here is Roger again. Ted Cruz's father, says Roger Stone, Rafael Cruz, was handing out pro-Castro leaflets in New Orleans along with CIA handler Lee Harvey Oswald. Doesn't mean he was involved in the murder of JFK. What it does mean is that Rafael Cruz was likely also working for the CIA. And the whole reason I'm bringing that up is I think there are so many members of the Congress that are put there by the CIA. And some of this stuff I think is multi-generational. That's my opinion. What say you?
You're right. It has been. Yeah, I know.
All right, let's flip to another story. Let's go to, I think I have a tweet on this one. Yeah, here we go. Just in, Elon Musk consults Curtis Yarvin, a right-wing thinker, really, right-wing, and monarchist on forming a third U.S. political party. Now, this is a guy that wants to create a monarchy in America, do away with U.S. Congress as we know it, and the whole nine yards. And he we've talked about him before, but he wants now to work with Elon Musk to start a new political party. What is all this about? Well, is this theater? Are President Trump and Elon really at odds with each other? Is all this fake? Is it all theater? Or is it real? And is Elon going to start a third party? And what's his objective in doing so?
This is the splitting now of the MAGA party, if you will. That's not a party, but you understand the populist movement in America. That movement was all together when Trump first got elected. Other than the fact that Elon Musk came on stage and had his black hat, had MAGA on it, and he said, "I'm not just MAGA, but I'm dark Gothic MAGA." So here's this concept now of the dark enlightenment that came from Curtis Yarvin in the first place. He was a tech bro from Silicon Valley. He's not a philosopher by any means, by any educational standards for sure, but people think his ideas are good. He kind of has a cult following at this point. People like Peter Thiel and Elon Musk especially. He's consulting with him right now to form this party. And this Curtis Yarvin has been the scourge of the populist movement. Everything he said is completely polar opposite to what the populist movement stood for in the first place. He wants to create a monarchy, make Trump perhaps the monarch. He wants to basically replace democracy and constitutional democracy with another system based on who knows what, but basically he wants to run the country like a startup from Silicon Valley, where there's a strong CEO who has vested powers to do whatever he wants to do to break things and, as they say, move fast and break things. And this is the guy now who's going to lead this new movement. Well, the populist movement, the MAGA movement, is going to be shattered in pieces when they realize the great betrayal that's taken place right before their eyes. There's going to be not necessarily a revolution, but there's going to be two factions now come out of that whole movement. Elon Musk has already been to Washington, D.C. He's infiltrated all these agencies with his top lieutenants to bring in AI, to continue the firing process, et cetera. He's already embedded in the Trump administration. He can't get loose from that. But now, you see, is there theater here? Well, at this point, he's going to draw some people away from the Trump movement, if you will, and setting up another party run by technocrats. What's the difference here? You have Trump on one hand, has all the technocrats to date in his administration, and now there's another organization here who wants to have all the other technocrats in their camp. There's technocrats everywhere. At that point, it just doesn't matter, does it?
So where is the country going, Not Leo, Patrick? Where is the country going? Are we going to end up with a North American Union? Is President Trump going to be the first president of the North American Union? Is he going to finish his 4 years? Is he going to lose at the midterms and be impeached? Is the MAGA movement going to turn against him at some point or not? Are they going to, or is the deep state going to try to get rid of him and install J.D. Vance because of his strong ties to Peter Thiel and the
Yes.
tech bros? I mean, there's so many things I'm just throwing out here, but these are all in my mind.
And they should be in the mind of every American at this point. The threat of having somebody like J.D. Vance to be president he's one heartbeat away from it at this point.
Right.
And probably he's going to be the heir apparent when Trump retires. J.D. Vance is a disciple of Peter Thiel. End of subject. He was funded by him all the way. That's the only person he ever worked for was Peter Thiel. And so J.D. Vance is in his camp, especially when you talk about Curtis Yarvin and his Dark Enlightenment movement. Yes, that's his whole thing. So you see, at this point, technocracy is going to win no matter who they promote and whatever they do at this point. They're going to have an alternative party, political party, to catch the outliers. The ones who still stick with Trump and the MAGA movement or whatever, they're already captured. So, this is a classical political move where you have both ends playing against each other, and the only people who are going to win are the technocrats.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, when it comes to this story by Fox News, FBI launches criminal investigations of John Brennan, James Comey, DOJ sources. Any DOJ source leaking that, I would think, would lose their job, because I would think if that's really happening, there's a very, very, very small circle of people that are working on a high-profile case like that. So I think they'd be putting people under polygraph right now saying, are you the leaker? Because that's how these things work, from what I'm told by experts. When you go after such high-profile cases, it's a small group of people. It's very, very hush-hush, and you're not out running around talking about it. I think this is fake news. It is a distraction over the Epstein thing, perhaps. We need another story. But I'm telling you right now, the chances of an indictment and criminal prosecution of John Brennan, former CIA director, or James Comey, the former FBI director, I think is very, very small. What say you?
Absolutely.
This is more red meat for the MAGA crowd to appease them because they were upset yesterday over the Epstein thing. True or false?
Exactly. And it's not going to come to anything. No. There's no way that they're going to be having arrest warrants for these people. Maybe they'll hassle them a little bit. Maybe they'll put them in front of a committee or something in Congress.
That's not how this team plays. That's not how the club works. And these guys know too much.
Yes. Exactly. So, it's much ado about nothing. And how many people have been arrested along the way that even Trump said we're going to be arrested, like Hillary Clinton. Nobody from the Clintons has been arrested. Nobody in the intelligence community has been arrested, and they're not going to be. This whole thing is a sham. The only person that's been arrested is Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yeah.
She's still in jail.
Now, I want President Trump to be successful, as I've said, because I agreed with a lot of the things he was running for. And if he's successful, America's successful, right? But I have to tell my audience to keep your expectations low as to what actually gets done. So let's say President Trump gets to the end of 4 years and we look back, how much will he have accomplished? On a scale of 1 to 10, how much will he have accomplished? 10 being the most obvious. On the MAGA, Make America Great movement, how much will he really have accomplished? Scale of 1 to 10.
Probably even a 4.
Wow. 40%. Yeah. Wow.
Exactly.
Technocracy, is that because the swamp's too big, or they threatened him, or he just realizes this is how Washington plays? There's nothing he can do, really.
We have the MAGA movement policy playing out, but aside of that, you have the technocrat policies on the other side.
Wow.
This is the movement that's going to kill us, not the closing the border and those sorts of things.
Technocracy.news. Thank you, Patrick. We'll be right back.
You bet.
I'll tell you one little quick story. We had a Worldview Weekend client who lived in California, lost their house, very wealthy guy. He didn't use Bitcoin. He came over here, drove to Arizona with $286,000 worth of his gold because he had no money and no house available. His bank was shut down because he couldn't have access to his bank account.
Was this during the fire? Was this during the fires?
During the fire. Didn't have his driver's license. He lost it. The state wouldn't give him a new license because he had no active mailing address. Real mess. So he came to Arizona to buy a house. He's moving everything over. He said, the only thing I got in my possession that I can get liquid with right now is my gold. I gave him a check for $286,000, and guess what? I didn't need his social, his driver's license. Sort of smiled, and I said, you know, I know you and Brandon talked about how this worked, but boy, this is great. I feel good. I got my money. Nobody bothered me, and I'm protected, and it's private. So you people out there who are sitting on your hands when Wes and I are sending you these requests and Brandon and you are talking to you, you better get active because you're going to pay me $4,000 an ounce the end of the year. Trust me.
You better get your. I highly suggest you get your free packet. You don't have to do anything. It's free, no obligation. Just simply go to worldviewgold.com, fill out the form, worldviewgold.com, or just text Wes and give him your name and address and say, I want the free packet. That's all you got to do. 602-558-8585, 602-558-8585.
Introducing the Sentry Wellness System, the ultimate under-sink water treatment solution designed with you in mind. Say goodbye to harmful toxins and hello to water enriched with essential nutrients like calcium and magnesium. Enjoy the benefits of increased pH for on-demand alkalinity, all from a zero-waste system that fits seamlessly into your home. Installation is a breeze, taking just 15 minutes, so you can have clean, healthy, great-tasting water straight from your tap. Perfect for apartments, homes, rentals, and even RVs. Elevate your hydration and well-being with the Sentry Wellness System because you deserve the best in every drop.
Sentry H2O. Tap into wellness.
Join me now is Tina Blanco with WorldviewTalk.com. Tina, floods, pitiful, sad, heartbreaking, and the loss of life, approaching 300 people in Texas. Then we saw last night, we played last night on our Washington report, the floods in New Mexico. Tell us about what you're hearing, because I know you deal with a lot of emergency response stuff and first responders. What are you hearing, Tina? And by the way, welcome back.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Brandon. Yeah, so I was in Texas. I was in Austin yesterday. And this is just such a tragedy because it's affecting children. And I have to say something about the camps, the summer camps that rent a lot of satellite phones from us. And we've been working with summer camps for nearly 20 years. They really are some of the most prepared people in the whole country, I think, because not only do they usually rent or buy or however one satellite phone, but they normally get a satellite phone for like an amount of kids, like say for every 5 kids, they have one satellite phone, whether it's for every teacher, every counselor, but they are pretty prepared with this. And I think we're going to find out later that a lot of the lives that were saved because they were able to communicate with first responders. Because when I was there, I was talking to Mike Adams, the cell phones, the cell towers were down in majority of those areas that were affected. Plus, when you're out in a rural area, there's no cell service to begin with.
So you're thinking we're going to find out that satellite phones maybe help save a lot of lives.
Yeah. So from our first responders, we're already getting some messages of that. I know, like with the Steve Slepcevic's team, we're sending more satellite phones because it is one of the ways that they can communicate. But it is a very heartbreaking, Brandon, because for me, I can't even watch the news anymore right now because I just can't stop thinking about my grandkids. And I can't even imagine what anyone is going through to lose their children.
I know.
It's just too much. The only thing that I could do is just pray, pray, pray.
Mm-hmm. My wife and I have said the same thing you're saying. How does a family handle that, deal with that, cope with that? We talked about that quite a bit over the weekend. And you think about whatever problems we may have in our life and issues we've had recently with the IRS, coming after us and wanting almost $50,000 that's not rightfully theirs. And my wife, said, well, let's put it in context. At least our kids are alive, right? We're not grieving the loss of a child right now. And she's right. It's when you start putting things into perspective, I'll take my problems versus what those families are dealing with, right? And you're right. My wife and I commented about that. How do these parents get on with their life afterwards? And we both agreed their lives will never be the same. Never be the same. They'll learn to cope with it, but they will never be the same.
Yeah. And the only thing I think that you and I can do, because, as you know, we both follow Jesus.
Right.
And the only thing that we could do is just trust in him and pray for the people.
Yeah.
And trust in him. And that's about the only thing that's keeping me, going with the more we learn about this. Because again, I just look at the grandkids and I just say, God, this is just too painful to be able to take as a human. And knowing that the moms and dads and the grandparents, what they have to go through when they send their kids to these camps, you send them to these camps so that they could learn and they become better people. And yeah, so it is definitely something that's a little bit hard to handle. And the only thing that I could do is pray and provide communication, whether it's for first responders to the local churches, and just ask people to just be more prepared. Brandon, we're noticing so many customers that are calling us, especially from the state of Texas, to either get satellite phones or reactivate satellite phones that they currently had that they didn't need for all these years, and then all of a sudden they need them. Mm. We just tell people, you know what, it's better to be prepared. It's not that costly. The phone is free. You just have to pay the monthly service. It's not that much. I think it starts out like at around $80 a month. You will own the phone after 12 or 15-month agreement. I think the way we have it set up in our system is the agreement is just a month after our break even, with giving the satellite phone for free so that you don't have to have a huge cost up front.
Put up there, if you would, guys, worldviewtalk.com. We'll just have them go right there, worldviewtalk.com. Did you know yesterday, by the way, I was searching cell towers down, numerous reports that yesterday 911 voice service is down in Central Florida. They're prompting users to text them instead. So there you go. Cell towers are down.
And
it was 911. I'm sorry, it was 911 voice service that was down. But then we were hearing that all mobiles, 911 non-emergency phone lines are currently down across Central Florida. That was yesterday. So we're getting several reports of these things. So whether it's cell towers down, 911 down, I mean, who are you going to call if you have no cell tower? I mean, you're going to be in big trouble. I was in an area a year ago for a few days, and you could not get a cell signal. And if you could, it would only hold for a couple seconds. But thankfully, I had one of your satellite phones, and I was able to conduct business. It wasn't anything life-threatening, but can you imagine needing help and you can't even get a cell tower? And with your satellite phones, as long as you're outside, you're going to get a cell tower. You're going to get a satellite, right?
Right. So cell phones work on about 7% of the earth. Satellite phones will work on 100% of the earth. And as we learned in Lahaina and doing fires, 911 was completely down. They have zero backup satellite, which really kind of surprised me that our emergency services have no satellite backup. It's just basically, Brandon, you are on your own. If a big fire happens or a big emergency happens throughout the country, there's no one that's going to come and help you. You are on your own. The fire department's going to be trying to take care of their own families. Look, take care of yourself. Prepare food, water, communication. Be prepared, because you're gonna be responsible to saving your own family. No one's, if things happen, no one's gonna help you. And as you saw what happened in Lahaina, and what you're saying, that with the 911 services not having backup, satellite backup, it really, really surprises me that they don't. And hopefully, with all of this that's happening, maybe things are going to change. And hopefully some of these emergency services will start getting some satellite backup, even Starlink. Look, we have Starlink for free. All you have to do is just go to the website that you just mentioned, and you just pay the monthly service. So there's no high upfront cost for this. These used to be, $5,000-$6,000 to get these phones. They're not that expensive anymore. They're around $1,300-$1,400, but because the cost has come down, we are able to take the price down to zero and just pay a monthly fee, a small monthly fee, until the price of the phone is paid for. Then you're just month to month.
Excellent. Tell me real quick about your various solar generators.
Yeah, so we're also, that's another thing, we're also getting a huge amount of orders for generators currently for the state of Texas. But you don't have to be in Texas. We all need to be prepared, Brandon. We need to have at least one generator, solar panel. The 400-watt solar panel will charge any generator or any of your electronics so quickly. It is so easy to carry, and it's portable. It folds, so you can just take it out and face it toward the sun, and you can just move it throughout the day. But I mean, we all definitely need to be a little bit more prepared for electricity, for communication, for just about everything. I think you have a list of things, right, that you have to be prepared.
Absolutely.
In event of a major emergency such as this. And anything can happen anywhere. You could be in California, there could be a huge earthquake. We're so due for earthquake. Even a lot of the plates in the Midwest, like along the Mississippi River right now, those are pretty active. So there could be something happening there, tornadoes, hurricane, floods. It's so easy for our cell towers are so fragile, but you cannot take the satellite phone down. The satellite phone, connect direct to the satellite, you go outside, you extend this, and now you have direct connection. This is your cell tower, by the way. It can't go down because it's stored in your pocket, or it's stored in your house or in your car. So no weather or anything is gonna take your cell tower down. You take this outside, you go outside, it doesn't matter where you are on Earth, the phone does not care where you are. There's no extra fees if you're in the middle of the ocean, or if you're in Antarctica or in Africa. It doesn't matter. The phone will still work as long as your cell tower can be outside so it can reach the satellite.
Yep, and I've done it. And you know what I love about your plan is you allow the minutes to roll over. So when I'm not using it, all those minutes are still rolling over. So if there's a time where I have to use a ton of minutes, I'm not gonna have to worry.
Yeah, and then we've noticed that, last year doing Hurricane Helene, that people that had a lot of rollover minutes, thousands of minutes that accumulated because they didn't need the phone for 5 years, were able to help out the whole neighborhood. They handed the phone out to thousands of people to make a call to their friends and family to let them know that they were okay, and also to be able to communicate with first responders. Same thing we're seeing right now in Texas with people communicating with first responders so that they can be, they can be saved, their lives, their children, and just an amazing thing that's happening right now. But we can be more prepared. And I think the camps, again, I think these guys are so good at prepping. And I think the tragedy that happened could have been a lot worse if these people weren't prepared. But man, these are some of the most prepared association that I've seen in my industry as far as communication.
Are you being aside from the people that are in, tough situations like Florida or New Mexico, are you overall getting a lot of business? Are people waking up? Is there any kind of heightened sense that we might want to start preparing for anything?
Yeah, we are. We're seeing a high volume of satellite phones being purchased right now because people are starting to recognize that it doesn't matter what your cell phone does. It doesn't matter if it has satellite texting. All of that is wiped out when a disaster happens. Everything that's on the ground, it could be taken out. Satellites, when you have your own cell tower and it's secured inside your car, or your cell tower is secured inside your house, nothing is going to take this down.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we are seeing across the country, we're seeing a huge sale, especially in Florida, the Carolinas, everywhere where there's a potential floods or hurricane or bad weather. But look, we need to be prepared. It doesn't matter where you live because you never know. There's no way of knowing where an emergency could happen. So it's always good to be prepared. All you need is one person in a community that has a satellite phone, and you could be that one person that has the satellite phone. In event of emergency, you can be the person that helps all of your neighbors in your community.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been doing a lot the last couple of days. Many experts, former intelligence people are warning about an imminent attack on America from Al-Qaeda. They're being very specific as to what group, although the names really don't matter. As Dave Gobbets has told us, call them what you want. They're really all the same ideology. They use all these different names really just to confuse people and cause people to say, I don't know who these groups are. I can't keep up. I can't tell one from the other. And you just kind of just say, and you kind of tune it out. So the names aren't really important. It's the ideology, the agenda. But we're hearing from people like Sarah Adams and others that are saying that these folks are specifically going to target airplanes again. And they're going with what's called invisible bombs. And she's explaining it in more detail today on her Twitter feed, where it's like a syringe and the syringe has a tube that goes to something else. And you push that device in there. There's no metal in it. So they're calling them invisible so you can sneak on the planes with them. And she and others are claiming Al-Qaeda they're here, they have these, and they're preparing to use them on airlines. I know you deal with a lot of people in the preparation field, in the first responder field. Are you hearing anything about this or about an imminent attack this year?
I'll tell you what I'm seeing as far as prepping by these, like the government and some of the large companies. First, I want to say that I do travel a lot. And the last 2 times that I've traveled, I haven't had to take my shoes off. So I'm really excited about that. But
it should also scare you because Sarah Adams, these people are saying this is the time everybody should be taking their shoes off because these scanners aren't picking up these so-called invisible bombs.
Yeah. So I don't know, but I'll tell you what I have been seeing. I have been seeing a lot of large organizations that are asking for quote for a large amount of Faraday products. I don't know why. Like we're getting, it's not like 100, it's thousands of them. They're asking on these Faraday products. So I'm not sure if we're being prepared, we're preparing for an EMP attack, or there could be a solar flare attack. I don't really know, but I do know that there has been a lot of requests for these. And
so when you say, I'm not asking you to give out a name, but are these government, are these private organizations, private businesses? Who's asking?
It's both.
So you got the government. The government is seeking to order up large quantities of Faraday bags.
Yeah, Faraday products. What they're asking for these Faraday products that blocks 5G, 2G, any kind of notification. So basically, as you know, just so that we can go through what these Faraday bags are. The Faraday bags blocks the signal. So it does 3 things. It protects from EMF, so you're not generating EMF to your body when you're not using the phone. It protects from EMP attack, so if there is an EMP or solar where it takes out all electronics, everything that's inside of a Faraday bag will be protected. And it gives you your security. So as you know, when you have a cell phone and you power off, let's say you want privacy, you want to go off the grid, you don't want anybody to track you. When you power your phone off, your smartphone off, you're still being tracked for up to 72 hours because there's a low mode battery for tracking. Apple still can track you, your location. If you put your phone on airplane mode, you can still be tracked. But the second you put your phone in here, tracking 100% stops. Nobody can see your location. So it does those three things. Plus, it's good for your health, especially when you're sleeping at night. You want to put your phone next to your bed. You want to put it in here so you can still hear the alarm. You can still hear the music if you want. But guess what? There's zero radiation coming to your body. If you try that for 1 week, you will notice that you will not have headaches. A lot of people that get headaches every day, they think that they need a cup of coffee. Well, no, you're exposing yourself. You put the phone right next to your head. Guess what you're doing? And there's a lot of people that put the phone under their pillow and they listen to music. And I'm just like, don't do that. So those have been really big. Also, if people can go to darkbags.com, and just say, they heard us or from you, Brandon. They can order all of these. We also have these large duffel bags. I don't know if you can see this. Here, let me show you. These are huge duffel bags.
Yeah, they are.
That can fit your generator, your computer. These things are really big. I think we sent you a couple. I'm not sure if you've gotten them yet.
No, I haven't.
We just got these in. Yeah, we just got these in. So protect at least one generator so that in case we do have an EMP attack, you'll have one generator that will work. And then we have them for the solar panel, so at least protect one of your solar panels. So the big one for the solar panel will fit your largest solar panel, which is the 400 watts. So it fits anything from a 10 watt to a 400 watt. You can go to darkbags.com and get those. And then, put everything in there at night and lock everything up so that you're not generating, even your computer modem, your Wi-Fi modem, put everything in this bag at night when you go to sleep. This way you give your whole family a way to be away from EMF during the 8 hours that you're not using the electronics anyways. So these duffel bags are really nice, but we made them big enough so that they can fit the largest generator that you can possibly have.
Excellent. Great idea. Wow. Very concerning. Corporations and the government agencies are asking and ordering from you quantities of Faraday bags.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Worldviewtalk.com, also darkbags.com, and worldviewtalk.com. Or you can use that number 1-866-738-3224. Did I get it right, guys? That was by memory.
You did.
Okay, good.
Oh, sorry. Brandon, can I just ask something too?
Yeah.
Because it's the show's in the evening, I have very few employees working. We actually like to answer all of our calls if we can, because we actually have humans. We don't have machines that take calls.
Right.
If you can place your order online, one of my agents will give you a call within 24 hours anyways. They'll give you a call, make sure that you got the right product, so you can do that. You can also, if you call in the evening, and the phone rings because, we have a few people, you can also call in the morning. But I highly recommend that you go to the website that you just mentioned and darkbags.com and place your order. We're going to call you anyways to confirm everything with you to make sure that you got the right products. So that's kind of my recommendation to you.
Excellent. Worldviewtalk.com, worldviewtalk.com. Tina, as always, thank you, and thank you for what you're doing to help the first responders in New Mexico and Texas.
Thank you so much.
Tina Blanco
God
with
bless you.
Worldview Talk. God bless you, Tina. Tina checking in tonight, folks. All right, we'll be right back after this break. Hello, I'm Brandon House. I want to thank you for all your support at WVW Foundation.com that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at WVWFoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at WVWFoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview. Joining me now is David Pine. David, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Hey, Brandon. Thanks so much for having me on.
All right. So there was a video we showed yesterday. Maybe Logan can bring it back up and show it, where we got a visual response from the CIA director, John Ratcliffe, when President Trump announced in the cabinet room he was going to be sending more weapons to Ukraine. I think Marjorie Taylor Greene is like, hold the phone. We're running low on our own weapons over here. But some thought the body language and the big putting the shoulders back and sighing by John Ratcliffe was one of shock. Others thought it was one of yay. So, it depends on who you're reading. We first thought it was like he was shocked to hear it. And then, we said yesterday on the show, others think it was not shocked, but it was his being pleased. So apparently President Trump, as you write on X, has green-lighted passage of a disastrous Russian secondary sanctions bill in the U.S. Senate, sponsored by Senator Lindsey Graham. I want to get to that as well. But let's start with the weapons to Ukraine. Pick it up there, please.
Well, I think you're right. CIA Director Ratcliffe is one of the chief neocons, along with Marco Rubio and Mike Waltz, who, by the way, I recently discovered Mike Waltz is still earning full cabinet pay on the National Security Council. We don't know exactly what role he's doing. He might actually still be performing in that role in a stealth capacity, or perhaps more likely as Rubio's deputy, because Rubio, of course, can't do those two jobs. But Ratcliffe, I don't think it was surprise. I think it was just kind of the fulfillment of kind of his propaganda campaign to misinform the president, along with Rubio and Waltz and Kellogg and others, and get them to keep fighting Biden's war against his campaign pledge to end the conflict. So I think this flip-flop, the crazy thing is Elbridge Colby, Undersecretary of Policy, he's one of Trump's best America First conservative picks. He's the one who announced that we just didn't have any weapons, more weapons to send to Ukraine, at least in terms of air defense missiles. Rubio echoed that. He said, we don't have them either, but we'll try to get them from other countries. But they might not want to give them because, they have limited supplies of their own. So this is very disappointing. It's a big flip-flop for the president. He had been threatening Zelensky after that famous February 28th meeting where Zelensky twice called him basically a Putin propagandist for repeating Putin's talking points, and he got away with it. He's been rewarded immensely for disrespecting our president, the President of the United States, in the Oval Office. He's gotten a 10-year security pact. He's gotten a mineral deal with none of the terms that Trump wanted and all the terms that Zelensky wanted. And he's got basically a blank check to keep fighting the war.
So at any point, are we going to get dragged into this because of NATO and Article 5?
Well, I think the main danger in terms of Article 5, I think, would be if Britain and France were to make good on their threat to send troops into Ukraine, into Western or Central Ukraine, perhaps after the collapse of Ukraine's front line, with Russian troops surging to the Dnipro River line, which, of course, includes part of Kyiv. Kyiv is mostly on the western side of the river, but has part of Kyiv Oblast is, of course, on the east side and very vulnerable to Russian attack. But especially if Russia, Putin decides to do what I've been thinking he might, which is to renew a northern offensive in Russia out of Belarus. I mean, Belarus is 50 to 60 miles from Kyiv. They got within 10 miles of the city center of Kyiv in just 5 days after they invaded. You know, a lot of people forget that the Russian army proved pretty capable until Putin ordered them withdrawn unilaterally from late March to April 4th. They were at the gates of Kyiv within 5 days. And that's why even folks like General Kellogg were saying, and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff at the time, Mark Milley, were warning that the Russians could potentially surround Kyiv in 3 days and knock Ukraine out of the war within 3 weeks.
What do you make of, so before we move on, you believe this is going to continue between Ukraine and Russia? You don't see this ending anytime soon?
No, and the problem is that, Trump came to office, saying that he was going to negotiate an end of the war within 100 days. And, one of his plans, at least the one that was leaked in January, it might not have been true, but had a lot of good elements. And the one element that was bad is that it said that Trump would not accept any disarmament for the Ukrainian military in terms, or limitations in terms of ranges of weapons, offensive weapon systems, or the overall size of their military. But much, I think probably the rest of the leaked proposal was acceptable. But that's not what came out. What came out is the 22-point Kellogg plan that was shared with NATO and Ukraine on April 21st. And that was subsequently shared with the Russians in a meeting with Kellogg, I think, and perhaps Putin, or maybe even Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov and Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, in the early May timeframe. And it was on May 2nd, as you recall, that the State Department spokeswoman, Tammy Bruce, came out and said that we were suspending all attempts to negotiate an end to the war, and we would just let Russia and Ukraine negotiate on their own. And that hasn't worked out so great. In fact, President Trump was unable, in this entire time, five and a half months in office, he has not succeeded in getting Zelensky to make even the slightest concession to Russia in terms of peace terms to move the ball forward on ending the war.
All right, let's go to your tweet today. President Trump has reportedly greenlighted passage of a disastrous Russian secondary sanctions bill in the U.S. Senate, sponsored by Senator Lindsey Graham, which would essentially cut off trade with 85% of the world's nations if they continue to trade with Russia and induce a major U.S. economic recession. The bill would impose 50 to 100% sanctions on any country that trades with China and would massively increase the cost of U.S. weapons production while depriving millions of U.S. citizens of the ability to pay for the life-saving pharmaceutical medications they need. What is this all about?
Well, it's not 50 to 100%. Maybe I miswrote that. It's 500 to 1,000.
Sorry, you do have it. I misread it. 500 to 100%.
To 1,000%.
Oh, yeah, you have 500 to 100%. So it's 500. Okay. Yeah, you seem to add another zero on there. But 500 to 1,000% sanctions.
Yeah, can you imagine that? So there's we obtain 90% of our life-saving medications from China. Let's say.
Sorry to use this as a moment to plug, but this is why I keep my medical kits around from the wellness company at worldviewhealthcare.com, David. My own pharmacy. The medical kit with my amoxicillin and other things in it, because again, I'm not going to get cut off, because last fall I had a temp of 103 with pneumonia. I was sick as a dog. I didn't even have enough strength to go to urgent care, but I didn't have to. So can you imagine? Most Americans don't have these kits at worldviewhealthcare.com, David.
Yeah, they should be mandatory. Everyone should be forced to purchase them. Because, there's any number of reasons or ways that we could be cut off from China. Obviously, even if we have severe sanctions against China, they retaliate by cutting off our everything that's important to us in terms of what they sell to us, including rare earths to build advanced weapon systems, and of course the pharmaceuticals that save American lives, because we just can't produce 90% of them here at home. Mm-hmm. So. It's so just imagine if there's a drug you pay $50 for, it's going to cost $500 or more now. If you're an elderly person that lives off Social Security, it'd be a choice between food rent or life-saving medication. You might end up on the street. So the question is, why is Trump, even considering this? I mean, this is a radical, it's a foolish move that's going to hurt the U.S. economy, and would if it were to remain in place. I mean, there's no question that the Republicans would be wiped out in the 2026 midterm election. So, I'm hoping that this post by Lindsey Graham is false, but Trump himself has said, yeah, I'm strongly considering doing that. And if I want it to happen, it's going to happen at a moment's notice.
Do you make anything of the leaked audio of President Trump talking to a group of people about bombing, telling Putin, if you do this, I'm going to bomb Moscow and all this stuff, or Xi Jinping going to bomb? Is that fake news, or did that really happen? Did he really say that? You know?
I haven't heard that or seen that as yet. So I'm afraid I can't talk about the veracity of that, but I would be, that does sound kind of the bombastic language that Trump uses, but why would he even consider bombing Russia or China when he's claimed that his number one foreign policy priority is to save us from World War III? I mean,
now, not that I want to get my information from CNN, but here's one outlet I just found real quick. Listen to this.
With President Putin. The audio obtained by the authors of a new book that is just out today. And for context, the president has long said that Putin would never have invaded Ukraine on his watch because of something he told him once privately. Trump had never revealed what that was.
I had a very strong conversation with President Putin, and he understood, and I won't go into the great details of the conversation because nobody has to know that. But I will tell you, it never, ever would have happened.
I don't want to say it, but did they fear me? I suspect they did.
Well, tonight we're learning those details as the audio reveals that Trump says that he threatened not just President Putin, but also China's President Xi Jinping. And this is what he told donors about what exactly that conversation looked like during a private fundraiser last year.
To Putin, I said, if you go in to Ukraine, we're going to bomb the shit out of Moscow. I'm telling you, I have no choice. The public wants it. The public. So he goes like, I don't believe you. I said, he said, no way. And I said, wait. And then he goes like, I don't believe you. But the truth is, he believed me 10%. And I told you this, he believed me 10%. Then I'm with President Xi of China. But I said the same thing to them. I said, if you go into Taiwan, I'm going to bomb the shit out of Beijing. He thought I was crazy. He said, Beijing, you're going to bomb Beijing. I said, I have no choice. I got to bomb them. We're going to bomb Beijing. And he didn't believe me that he said 10%. And 10% is all you need. In fact, 5% would have been okay too. And we never had a problem. We would have never had a problem.
David, thoughts?
Well, I think that sounds legit. That
that he once had.
Sounds like what he would say to a group of allies or donors. But I can guarantee you with 99% certainty that he would never say anything like that to Putin or Xi. He's a negotiator. He makes the threats that he makes are really often for our own U.S. public audiences. I would be shocked if he ever said anything like that to Putin or Xi, and if he did, I mean, they just think he's an idiot.
Okay. I want to talk with you real quick about this. We've been talking about Sarah Adams. She's former CIA. Other analysts are talking about this. She's talking about over and over now lately, the invisible bombs, if you will. And there's a video of it. Let me play this video real quick. And I'll explain it more. But you can see that there's being held two items, okay? Two items are being held in the hand right there, okay? So one is like a syringe in the hand with the looks like a white glove. And you push the fluid through that tube that's going to the other device in what would be his left hand, I guess. And this does not have metal in it. And she said, for those wondering about the latest version of Al-Qaeda's invisible bomb, they tested the real prototype in this 2023 shot. Anyone in government claiming it doesn't exist is lying to you and decreasing at TSA bomb screening at U.S. airports right now is gross negligence by DHS. As you know, they're now saying we're not going to make you take off your shoes. And she's saying, and others are saying, this is when we should be examining everybody because the idea of a underwear bomb or a shoe bomber, this is legit. This can happen. And she says they are threatening the airlines. So she's saying this needs to happen. And she goes on to say that they've got them. They've got these threats going. Makes zero sense when we have this Al-Qaeda plot in play and both the World Cup and the Olympics coming up. I think it was to appease the crazies who don't like airport security, but now the entire flying public is at greater risk for appeasement. She is saying that some of these got in during the Biden regime, I read today on her Twitter feed, and that at least one has gotten through since Trump has come into office. Now, she's saying what needs to happen is all persons must go through the millimeter wave scanners to stop this plot if the government can't thwart the bombers prior. Now the air marshals reportedly have been pulled off of planes and are, according to reports, checking for lice at the border and walking people to the bathroom. And the air marshals, here we go, the Air Marshals National Council has filed a complaint with Congress and asking for this to stop. So we aren't checking shoes in some airports, and that might spread. Apparently pulling air marshals off planes to be babysitters at the border. And we lowered we took a Syrian terrorist group off the watch list. I mean, we went through the list last night with Annie Cyrus and others. What do you make of all this, David?
Well, I do think there's been a heightened threat from terrorist cells, certainly with the U.S. bombing of Iran. So I think, Al-Qaeda has from time to time been loosely allied with Iran, even though they're Sunnis and Iran's Shiites. Iran, of course, famously allowed bin Laden to stay in Iran and also facilitated the transit of the very Al-Qaeda terrorists that took down our airlines and bombed in, the Pentagon and the Twin Towers on 9/11. So they do have that relationship. Then, of course, they had there was an Al-Qaeda shootout in Iraq where, Iranian militias were fighting them. So, but that's probably a different faction. But in terms of Al-Qaeda groups' position against the United States, I think they're still very much aligned. And so, I think if Trump were to follow through in his latest threat to rebomb Iran, restart that war, I think Al-Qaeda would capitalize on that and conduct terrorist attacks across the country, along with with Iranian funding.
Mm-hmm. She says in here, it's a chemical initiation. You inject the syringe just prior to the real world. There's a chemical chamber in each. When the chemicals come together, it ignites like a chim light. The syringe is stored separate until the suicide bomber is ready. No, he does not need gloves. This is the prototype, so it's older. And the airline version is slightly smaller than this prototype. So there you go. I mean, she's talking like she's getting some serious, intel here. And she's saying, this is a very imminent threat.
Well, I think there's a lot of threats that are even greater than that. I mean, I certainly wouldn't, make life real difficult for every passenger. As we've done since 9/11, there's been essentially, no Islamist terrorist strikes on our plane since. But certainly if there's a heightened alert that's where there's an imminent threat that's we assess is present, then I think some kind of measures like you described would be helpful in the interim. But I think there's a lot greater threats. I don't know what kind of delivery, would a syringe be? Would it be that they inject themselves and they're a human bomb? Would they,
Well, she's saying you inject, you keep the syringe separate, you inject, it goes through the fluid and connects up with the other device, and that's how it ignites. Hold right there, we'll be right back with more with David.
Nature has a rhythm, a quiet strength, a way of restoring, protecting, and renewing us. Wellness isn't just about how you feel today. It's the quiet choices you make for tomorrow. At myvitamin.com/worldview, we've made daily self-care simple. quality vitamins, daily supplements, and targeted nutrition. myvitamin.com/worldview makes it easy. Pure ingredients thoughtfully combined, tailored for your body. Formulated by a doctor who has over 25 years of medical practice experience and is a certified functional medicine provider. Visit myvitamin.com/worldview today and take the next step towards strength, balance, and resilience. Discover the wide range of med packs made for you and your loved ones. What you nurture today becomes the strength you walk in tomorrow.
We're not changing courses. Now, we are who we are. We're committed to the truth that we are committed to. Worldview Tube is a broadcast network that I started in 2006, but it's based on my 35 years as an author and speaker and commentator. Worldview Tube is here to defend the truth of a Christian worldview. And we believe we can apply it to all areas of life, like law, science, economics, history, family, social issues, education, religion, major issues.
At worldviewtube.com, we provide news from around the globe that isn't typically covered by mainstream media. Visit worldviewtube.com to watch our experts and analysts discuss all your favorite topics on our 24/7 live stream. Explore our extensive collection of unfiltered and uncensored content from 35 years of production. Go to worldviewtube.com today. Also find us on all of these major platforms and download our Worldview Tube mobile app.
All right. She also has put out, Sarah Adams, they're planning to target around a dozen planes. If the attacks begin and you're in an airport, leave immediately. Some bombers may still be in the terminals, and if a ground stop is called, they will detonate there instead. All right. One of many existential threats. This is what happens when you have your border open. And of course, this is what happens and what we warned about when we escalate things in the Middle East and we get involved. And now we're involved. And this is the very thing we were warning you guys about 3 weeks ago. So let's talk about real quick as we wrap with you tonight, David, cyber attacks, EMP, Taiwan, all of this. Anything new in your wheelhouse on this?
Well, it's not new, but I would like to say that I still consider the greatest domestic threat to be the estimated 100,000 PLA troops and special forces that are, reportedly located along key U.S. military bases, 17 key U.S. military bases with Chinese farmland adjacent. I actually live next to some Chinese farmland myself. I think here in Utah, it's about 35% of our land is Chinese owned. We have a couple, moderate-sized military installations in the area, kind of in the west central Utah region, northwest, and it's just ridiculous. I think I've seen some posts, maybe some True Socials by top administration officials that they're looking at this. But why are they looking at it? Why aren't they banning and retaking, by force all of this land? They should be using, all U.S. troops to reoccupy that land. And if we choose to pay them a sum of money and pay the China a sum of money for the land we're taking back, that's fine. But we need to round up all these 100,000 military-age Chinese men and deport them out of the country because, as we've discussed, they could have Club Ks on diesel trucks fired in much the same manner as Ukraine was able to do with in Operation Spiderweb with their truck-launched drones. This is an existential threat. They could be armed with nukes. They could be armed with biological weapons, even nerve gas, and we're doing nothing about it.
Well, and there's a guy, I sent you his thread today. Jason Lewis, Lewris. He's saying and he's according to his research, which I can't validate his research, but I've read his thread. He's saying these guys don't own just farmland; they own residential houses throughout America, and some of them are pretty high-ranking CCP people. Have you heard that too?
So what I've heard is that the Chinese have invasion plans of the Western U.S., and they've already picked the luxury homes that they're going to occupy in terms of the top generals and colonels in the Army, senior colonels, which are basically brigadiers in our military command structure. So that is their plan B. If we defend Taiwan militarily, they will enact their genocide plan for the U.S. They'll attack us with a massive cyber attack, and if that doesn't work, they might use regional super EMPs as well. Probably more in the eastern and maybe the southern grids, Texas grid. Probably not the western grid, because I think that they're wanting to occupy us. But that's not an outcome we want to risk. We need to Trump needs to find a way to compromise with China over Taiwan. They've already refused to meet with the U.S. unless Trump clearly and publicly states that he does not support Taiwanese independence and takes some kind of minor affirmative measures to essentially recognize that Taiwan is indeed part of China. I mean, I hate to say that. I don't want Taiwan to be part of China, but I've come out with a confederation plan that's an EU-style confederation where Taiwan would be nominally part of a Chinese confederation, but it wouldn't have any Chinese troops other than the most southernmost Taiwanese naval station, which is very remotely located, and they could maintain the control of their own armed forces. Of course, have free elections and a free economy.
Look at this. Here's where you can follow him at America First Con, at America First CON. And he's the president of the EMP Commission. Do I have that right, David?
It's the Task Force on National Homeland Security. Yeah.
Okay. That's a longer title. And your website, I think, is emptaskforce.us, right?
Yeah, that's correct. emptaskforce.us.
And you can follow him again. Also, Substack, dpyne.substack.com, dpyne.substack.com. Thank you, David, as always.
Thanks so much, Brandon. Have a great day.
You too. David Pine checking in as usual. Great to have David on. Don't forget, folks, we're brought to you by you. Worldview Foundation.com is a great way to do it. Worldviewfoundation.com. Also, of course, worldviewtube.com/sponsors. worldviewtube.com/sponsors. These are very, very important ways you can support us, okay? When you go there, please check out these great products that I take each and every day. And I urge you to do the same thing, okay? worldviewtube.com/sponsors. All right. So don't forget about our apps before we conclude tonight. worldviewtube.com/apps. Get our apps. Be sure to set that you want to get our notifications so that you get our push notifications when we have to come on live for breaking news. We'll notify you. And also, your life is busy, so we'll notify you even when we're on our normal times as well with a little friendly push notification. All of the free apps are at worldviewtube.com/apps. Hey, don't forget about our big conference coming up this fall. Go to worldviewstore.com, worldviewstore.com. Check out the lineup for our fall conference. Look at this lineup. Gordon Chang, Sidney Powell, Dr. Lana, Andy Woods, Chris Martinson, we also have Mark Mitchell of Rasmussen, Alex Newman, and Hedia. Hedia will be with us as well. What a lineup. The tickets are only $99. We lowered the price because we moved to the Mid-South, renting a beautiful theater owned by our town. So we passed the savings on to you. Tickets are only $99, but there are only 350 seats. We're outside of Memphis. Very safe, upscale, really nice upscale community. Collierville, Tennessee, Germantown, Tennessee. Very nice upscale community. We have all the hotels and everything that you should stay at right there, and you'll just have a great time. And because we're only allowing 350 people in the building, you're going to have a great opportunity to walk up and visit with all the speakers, which I hope you'll do. And they're going to bring books and different things as well. So again, we'd love to have you. Melissa and I, Logan, the team will all be there. Love to visit with you guys in person. It's our 22nd annual national conference, our Worldview Weekend National Conference, October 3rd and 4th. Now, remember, there's also a banquet, okay? On that Thursday night, there is a banquet, and we're going to have with us Hedia as a keynote speaker. It's at one of our favorite restaurants. We love they have a great steaks. I mean, woo, and salads and baked potato, and they have chicken. They have a great lineup. You can find out all about it there. There's the first course, second course, That's on Thursday night. That's optional. There's no profit margin fixed into that. Okay, that's just our cost because it's a nice banquet. Okay, so you don't want to miss out. It'll be a great evening. And again, all the details are at worldviewstore.com. All right, roll the music. Let's call it a night. Okay. Thank you as always for watching, for praying for us, for telling others about us, and of course for supporting us. We appreciate that very much. Don't forget about joining our vault. You want to go to worldviewtube.com/vault. Worldview, let me take you over there, worldviewtube.com/vault. You can find out all about having access for as little as $99 a month to 35 years of my radio shows, TV shows, ebooks, audiobooks, documentaries, and more. $9.99 a month. $9.99 a month. That's as cheap as that, all right? May God save America. Take care.
Faith, spiritual values, moral issues, government, economy, education, work, responsibility. What we think about these depends on our worldview. Now, VCY America presents Worldview Radio with Brannon House.
And welcome to the broadcast on this July 9th, 2025. We're going to be joined by Aaron, our reporter on the ground in Israel, here in just one second, because apparently there has been a practice for the sacrifice of one of the red heifers. What does that mean? What does that mean? I think those of you that are regular viewers and listeners know exactly what it means. They're counting on having a temple soon. They pretty much have everything they need minus a temple. But again, they could just go with a tabernacle for a while. Right? Now, before we go to him, and of course, we have the Israeli prime minister is here in America right now. So I'm sure Aaron has some thoughts on that. The fighting in Gaza is very intense. We've got some dead IDF. Hamas, they just won't go away. They're still in those tunnels. They're still fighting. And I think, folks, it's just the sign of the times. I don't know. We'll find out from Aaron. Is this ever going to end? But it's been very costly for Israel. It really has. And it's not done yet. They're still fighting. I know it's gotten drowned out with all the other news, but it's still there. We got to get an update. Now,